Okay, good morning, everybody. So we're going to get started here. So now that we know everybody can see and hear us, so we'd like to thank everybody for attending IWI's Sage Intact's overview webinar. The purpose of this is just to give everybody an overview of the Sage Intacct. So here's the agenda. So we're going to talk about who is Sage Intacct, Sage Intacct Cloud Financial Management Solution, the Sage Intacct technology, the Best of Sage Intacct presentation, and then next steps and Q&A. So what we'd like to do too as well is just let everybody, if you have any questions, just enter them into chat and we can answer the questions at the end as we go through this. If we can move to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about IWI. I know a bunch of you already know who IWI are. So we're an authorized Sage partner since the year 2000. We've served well over 200 companies across Canada and North America. Our head office is in the GTA. Some of the verticals that we service is a nonprofit, professional service, manufacturing, and distribution. And some of the products, we're a Sage house. We do Sage Intacct, Sage 300. We do Sage EM, also intelligent softwares and things like that as well. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this off to Linda, who is the principal solution consultant for Sage Intacct.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, IWI team, for inviting me to help you with this webinar and to deliver some important information today about Sage Intacct. So many of you know IWI. You may not know a lot about Sage Intacct, and certainly I have seen this organization grow and get larger and become part of the Sage family. I've been with Intacct for 9 years and then joined the Sage family a couple of years ago. So today, my role as a solution consultant is to share with you a little bit of the background of our organization and some key points about the technology. This may be a new type of technology for you. You may not be as familiar or comfortable with cloud. So we want to make sure that you come away today with some key differentiators from a technology perspective. And then I also want to share with you a little bit about the product and why we're different, how we're deployed, and cover some of those differentiators in how we are architected and how over 15,000 companies are using our solution. So the first slide that I want to start out with is just to have a conversation with you about who is Sage Intacct and where did we come from. So first of all, we were rolled out in 1999, and we've always been a cloud-based solution. So if you are using a solution today that is an on-premise solution, we've never been that particular model. Our model is best in class, and we're going to talk about that, and you'll understand better what that means as we go along. Important to note, though, is that this is a single code base, which means that unlike on-premise solutions, we don't have different versions of the software. We only have one version. All of those companies that are using Sage Intacct are running the same version of software. And that's important, and it's also very effective from a cost perspective, from a maintenance perspective. If you think about someone like, I always use Southwest Airlines as an example. They fly one type of aircraft. And because they fly one type of aircraft, they then have the ability to only need to educate pilots, ramp agents, flight attendants on just one model. So it makes it very easy. It makes it very consistent. It streamlines and automates the process, and it's very cost effective. So a single code base here. We do have 4 updates a year. So each quarter, we're going to have a quarterly update, and we'll talk about that as well. But just know that we're all running the same version of software. As I mentioned, our model is different. It's best in class, as opposed to Other solutions you may have used or evaluated are what's known as a suite. And the difference there is that best in class means that you get to choose what's best for every area of your organization or business. Our core competency is financial management. That's what we do best. So we are best in class for financial management. In fact, the AACPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, has nominated us as the preferred provider and given us that accolade for the last 13 years. And we're the only software company that has that from the AACPA. A best-in-class model is different than a suite model in that in a suite, it is that. It's a group of applications or products grouped together, bundled, if you will. And when you buy the suite, you're buying the entire bundle. You're also contributing to the development of the entire bundle, whether you're using all that's in the bundle or not. In best in class, you're going to use exactly what you choose to use. You're not going to be subscribing to product that you don't have any use for. Now, another difference in Sage Intacct with this best in class model is the way we were architected, and that is knowing that we are going to be your financial solution. We know that there's other solutions you need in your organization. So we were architected to be a very easy solution to integrate to. So you'll see that on our Intacct marketplace, we have over 250 other best-in-class applications that we integrate with. That means, again, back to that best-in-class model, we're a piece of the solution. We're not the entire solution. So if you are running other applications today that you know and you love and you don't need to replace them, that's perfectly fine. The data from those systems can be integrated into Sage Intacct, into our financial engine. Now, another key differentiator is the way that our chart of accounts is structured, which uses a table-driven chart as opposed to a linear chart. So today, you may be using a chart of accounts that has segments as part of the account structure. We do not use segments in our chart. We have a modern chart. We only need the base account or the natural account. And then we use something called dimensions to tell the rest of the story of the transaction. Dimensions allows us to have that granular reporting that everyone wants, to be able to slice and dice the data. And you'll see that when we look at our solution presentation. We also are very focused on what's important to companies today is to know how they're tracking. And the way that you know that is through visibility. So visibility allows you to be accountable for what's going on in your company or organization. And you'll find that today you'll see dashboards that allow you that visibility. Everyone in your organization can have their own dashboard and have drill down to the source transaction. I like to think of them as actionable dashboards. And you'll see a dashboard in action in a few minutes. You'll also see a very fresh and modern user interface. I'll show you how easy it is to move around. And you'll also note that we are targeting the C-level folks in an organization based on what we know they are most interested in. Top of list for C-level individuals is streamlining and automating processes. So our processes are configurable, and they are also very streamlined, so you are not entering data multiple times. You're also going to see the ability to be more strategic with these dashboards and the reporting that we provide. So key to management is always the reporting aspect, and then being able to streamline and automate processes. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little bit about the different solutions, the applications, the core financials. We do have some specific industry solutions. So our sweet spots are around verticals that include hospitality, financial services, wealth management, nonprofit, wholesale distribution, software companies like Sage Intacct, and then of course, looking at anyone that has a multi-company. We refer to companies as entities. So anyone who is managing multiple entities, that is a very strong point for our solution. Now, there's some other applications down in the right-hand corner that are specific to certain types of organizations. You may be a company that is focused on projects, so there's a full project billing and costing solution here. You may need the ability to do full distribution with managing perpetual inventory. You may have a large number of assets that you're trying to manage, so fixed assets is another one of those applications. And then, of course, if you are a software company or if you have complex billing, we have a full contract management and subscription billing solution. As I mentioned before, we certainly have the AACPA endorsement. We have a couple of other endorsements I want to point out here. One is being a leader for G2 Crowd. And G2 Crowd, you may not be as familiar with as you are with the analyst, which the last accolade there is an analyst visionary award for what they see our company being a visionary in reporting and in innovation, if you will. So keeping up with everything that is going on in the industry. The middle one, though, the G2 Crowd, is one that's different than the analyst review. The G2 Crowd comes from them interviewing and recording from users. So the users that are using the software are providing reviews on what they think of the software. So it's a very different perspective and one that we value highly because these are the people that are using the solution on a day-to-day basis. And I'm happy to say that G2 Crowd has awarded us accolades since 2013. So we have come forward now to winner of 2019 with #1 in customer satisfaction. We're very focused on that. It's one of our core tenets. Again, the AACPA, they're the folks that know more about accounting than probably all of us put together. And again, this is an award that we covet very highly. We've had it for many years now. In addition to, the different applications and vertical solutions that we have, here are some of the verticals that we play very well in and some logos that you may recognize. So if you think about NFP or nonprofit, that's a big chunk of what we do today. It's a very strong vertical for us. Another one that's coming on very strong is financial services, where you're looking at wealth management companies and family offices. Of course, software as a service. Our general business, this is where kind of the black hole, if you will. It's companies that don't fit maybe into one of these other verticals. Healthcare, hospitality, professional services. So again, a lot of these companies are privately held. Many of them are public. Some of them have started out as private and then gone public while on Sage Intacct. As I mentioned, we are all about the customer. We're a very customer-centric organization. Our partners like IWI are very customer-oriented as well. It's our belief that we need to provide you with a strong community atmosphere where you have a portal that you can go to as a customer that allows you to have a forum where you can ask questions, you can post information, you can get new data around what's going on in the community, and that's available to customers, to partners, and to Sage Intacct employees. We're all about customer success because we know that if you're successful, we will be successful. Now, there's a few things that I want to touch on here around core tenets for us. One I mentioned earlier was the multi-entity. That means that you're going to have the ability to manage unlimited companies or entities in Sage Intacct. And you're going to have, you're going to have that business insight through those dynamic or actionable dashboards. We're also going to be able to provide you in that multi-entity environment the ability to consolidate and to have that continuous consolidation. It's not going to take days or hours. It's going to be done in minutes. And then being able to streamline those configurable business processes all around this different model, this best-in-class modern cloud platform. I believe it's helpful for you to see a little bit about our landscape. And this is a quick slide here. And by the way, you'll get these slides after the presentation today. This is a quick slide that just shows how connected and integrated our solution is. If you start at the bottom, you can see some of the foundational components around having the ability to do multi-entity and global consolidation. So I would tell you that we are multi-everything. We're multi-entity, we're multi-ledger, multi-journal, multi-book, we're multi-currency, which points us right to global consolidation. So today, what I'm going to show you is all US dollars. However, turning on multi-currency means that we keep track of those exchange rates, and we will keep track of the transactions and the rates that they are recorded at. We'll create that reevaluation report for you automatically and show you the gain and loss based on the transaction rates. You'll also see that we have the normal accounting applications that you would expect to see. We have some additional ones like dynamic allocations, where you're trying to do pooled allocations, Sage Intacct budgeting and planning, an advanced budgeting application. We have standard basic budgeting within the core application, and then we take it up another level if you need to do more complex budgeting and modeling. The same thing is true with our reporting. Today, I'm going to show you the financial report writer. We also have an advanced report writer. It's the interactive custom report writer, which allows you to do more advanced calculations, more complex calculations in the columns, to do pivot tables, full drag and drop. And it's something that, many of our customers have moved to. And the point that I like to make on this landscape slide is that, all roads lead to the general ledger. So that is the strong connection here. The dimensions that I've been talking about, they work in every one of these applications. So you're creating dimensionalized data that's flowing through to the general ledger so that you have the ability to create and look at those granular reports. With that best-in-class model, we also integrate with other best-in-class applications. As I mentioned, that's our model. We're not going to be offering you a complete solution out of Sage Intacct. We're going to be a piece of that solution. We partner with over 250 other best-in-class applications. Many of these you will know. You'll recognize them. If you look up in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the logo for Salesforce. Salesforce is a longtime partner of ours. We've partnered with them for 13 years now. We're a platinum partner. We developed a bidirectional integration or connector to Salesforce. So if you're currently a Salesforce user, then this is going to be very attractive to you because now we have that bidirectional integration. We also partner with folks like Avalara. So if sales tax is important to you, Avalara is a leader in sales tax. So you see them in the middle of the screen. So lots of integrations here already in place that help drive out the full solution. When you think about Sage Intacct, you should remember three things. One, the visibility that we provide, the integration to other best-in-class applications, and the automation. So being able to streamline and automate those processes, at the same time providing you the best opportunity to have other best-in-class solutions integrated with a core financial system, and then giving you visibility across those role-based dashboards. Sage Intacct is the only solution to do it all. So now let's move on to technology for a few minutes, because this is an important way for you to understand who's responsible for what, and to talk a little bit about the total cost of ownership. Some of you may have seen this slide or some rendition of it before. I call it the iceberg slide. And if we focus on the difference between on-premise solutions versus a cloud solution. So when you look at the on-premise slide, you see there's a little bit of the iceberg above the water, but most of the iceberg is under the water. And that's the scary part, because that's what you don't see. You don't see always what's underneath the water, but it's there. And more importantly, you're paying for what's underneath the water that you don't see. And if you look at that breakdown, you can see that things like implementation and hardware, more specifically maintenance. Sometimes maintenance is a double-digit figure here instead of a single digit. So the license that you see above the water is just a very small part of what you are really paying for. The rest of it is down underneath the water. And then there are some ongoing costs that, might involve replacing hardware, doing upgrades and updates, having backup equipment so that you're making sure that you're backing up your information in case there's some sort of a problem and you need to go to a backup and recover from a disaster. When you compare that to cloud computing and look at the right-hand slide, you see that it's almost even. I mean, you look at the iceberg and there's quite a bit above the water and not nearly as much under the water. And when you look at that dollar amount or that percentage amount that's above the water, it's really encompassing subscription fees. And what's below the water are those one-time implementation costs and perhaps training, initial training. Now, as you look at the ongoing costs, you see that there's quite a difference in the list there. So yes, you're still going to have that ongoing cost of the subscriptions, and you may have some additional training or education that you apply as you go along. You may decide that you want to add another application to your subscription, which requires some implementation and some education. But when you look at the difference between these two, you can see that the responsibilities fall very differently. If you're in an on-premise solution, you're responsible for hardware. You're responsible for putting those updates in. Those updates may need to be tested. They may not always flow through without errors and problems. On the cloud side, we as the publisher, we're going to take care of those updates. We're going to apply the upgrades every quarter. In fact, we're going to guarantee that they don't break anything that is currently in your application. So we take responsibility for that. We do all the backup. We make sure that the data is secure. You don't have to buy any special hardware. Remember, this is a cloud-based solution that runs entirely across the internet. So as long as you have access to the internet, and by the way, we run on any browser, and you have the proper permissions, then your data is available to you 24/7, 365. So a very different model. It really shifts from CapEx to OpEx. And this is a good way to show you visually how that lays out. So just a couple more slides around the cloud platform and the cloud technology. A couple things that I picked up on in some recent articles was the fact that, the benefit of the cloud is continuing to grow. A lot of people are really becoming more interested in moving to the cloud. I was at a Sage Summit yesterday in Atlanta. In fact, I was there for 3 days. The return on investment of a cloud deployment really has increased by more than 50%. And that's really based on the adoption, the increased adoption. So just when you look at cloud, you can realize that cloud delivers 3.2 times more return on investment. And it continues to roll out to the total cost of ownership. When you look at the total cost of ownership here and the fact that you don't really need to have heavy IT resources, you don't need to have the heavy deployment for on-premise solutions and all of the maintenance and the hardware maintenance that goes along with an on-premise solution. So these cloud deployments, and this comes directly from Nucleus Research, and this is a couple of years ago, so this has only increased over the last 2 years. Cloud deployments have an average of 2.3 times a lower total cost of ownership when you compare that with an on-premise deployment. So lots of benefits here around moving from an on-premise solution to a cloud-based solution, which is what you're going to see with Sage Intacct. So let's take a quick break here. Let's come back into looking at the software and what I call the best of Sage Intacct. So I have switched screens. I am out of PowerPoint, and you're now looking at a controller dashboard. So this may be your first time to look at Sage Intacct. So just a few things across the user experience that are important for you to take away today. The fact that I am managing multiple entities in one instance of Sage Intacct. In fact, I've logged in today as the controller, and I am managing 4 companies, 4 entities. This could be an unlimited number of entities. No logging in, logging out. Part of my permission as the controller is to be able to get into any of these companies and transact. I also have landed on a controller dashboard, and this dashboard view that you're looking at is a consolidated view. So when you think about those 4 companies, this $32,000 in revenue is a consolidated revenue number. Each one of these boxes here is what we call a performance card. So this is a way for you to have quick business insight. So as the controller, I may want to look at my combined revenue very quickly, and I have that in this performance card. I also have the ability to filter this dashboard. So when I said actionable dashboards, this is one way that we can put this dashboard into action. So now I can apply a filter and change the view on the fly to just one of my companies. So I've chosen the Texas company here. So now you can see that my revenue has changed to $19,000. So just a representation of the dashboard based on the filtering at the dashboard level. Now, other filters might be by customer, by project, or I may want to filter as of a certain date, and I have that opportunity as well. So no reason for me to create a lot of different dashboards. I can create one and then use the dashboard filters to get to that granular information. I also, as the controller, want to know sometimes what's going on with my expenses. And if I click on my performance card for G&A for general and administrative, that allows me to compare this month to last month or this period to a previous period or quarter. And as I look at this data, I then have the ability to drill into it. So now I can drill in right to the ledger. I can see this $5,900 is coming from Midtown Property. And if I want to know more about that transaction, I can drill into it as well here. So this takes me to the source level. So remember, how I got here was directly from that dashboard. I'm curious. I want to know what's behind that performance card. So here is the invoice, the AP invoice from Midtown for $5,900. It's due in 15 days. And what's important to me is being able to see how I can take this one invoice and I can allocate it or spread it across all of my companies. And that's what I've done here. I've said each one of my companies gets their fair share of the rent. Now, I can do that manually, or I can ask Intacct to help me by setting up an allocation template or rule. So if I take that $1,200 and apply the rule to it, now Intacct has done the math for me. It's taken it and split it evenly based on my rule across those departments and locations. This is also probably a good place to stop and point out and talk a little bit more about dimensions. So one of the things that you saw me do was to take the dashboard and filter it by entity or location. That was a dimension that allowed me to do that. Now what you see here is that starting with location all the way over to user defined dimension, these are other dimensions I can tag these transactions to. When I tag them and post the transaction, I'm creating dimensionalized data. That's what allows me to slice and dice the data based on one or more of the 10 predefined dimensions in Intacct. Now you're going to see that in a minute because we're going to take a look at an income statement. But here you can see where if this transaction was for a specific project or you wanted to track it by employee, those are dimensions that you can tag the transaction to. So let's come back to our dashboard and let's take a look at an income statement and give you a view of a report that most companies and organizations are familiar with. This is a standard report that I've created with the Financial Report Writer. You'll see I've got all my companies side by side here. I've got some conditional shading turned on. Those are some rules where I said if anything's zero, I want you to color code it in red because that means I probably need to go do some research and find out what's going on. I can come up here to my filters and I can filter this report by one or more of those dimensions that I've been talking about. So let's just say that I want to take this report and filter it just to Texas and just to a certain item. So now I've said just Texas and just the 210 Defender item. When I execute the report, you now see a report that's different because now it's showing me two locations, Austin and Dallas, rolling up to my Texas company or my Omni Glass company. And this allows me to do that same drill down that we saw. It also allows me to have the conditional shading. And it gives me that ability to slice and dice that income statement without creating 400 reports. I can take one report and I can filter it until my heart's content. So coming back to those filters, starting here with department all the way down to as of date, pick and choose how you want to filter that data. So that's a little bit about what we're doing with the data and in the Financial Report Writer, being able to create this income statement and then filter it with those dimensions. In addition to that, I may want to change this report on the fly. And being able to do that is permission-based. So not everyone would be able to do this. But notice that I have my sales broken out by product line. I may not want to see it by product line. I may want to see it in a different way. So stepping into the Financial Report Writer and into the rows allows me to change the way that data is being shown. And I'm going to use the expansion by dimensions. So we're going to filter this and expand it by the items. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at that same report. And now what you see, instead of sales broken out by product category, you're going to see sales by individual item. Item is one of those 10 predefined dimensions. So having that dimensionalized data allows me to filter the data at the reporting level and get to that granular reporting that everyone wants. Now, one of the other things that I can do is I can come in and I can change this report based on those filters. I can change the level of detail. I can also come in and change the columns. So remember, we had an income statement that showed me all of my companies in individual columns. And that's because in this column here, I ask it to expand by location. I could come in here and I could say, I don't want to expand by location. I want to expand by department. And expanding by department now will change those column headers. So now you see the different departments across the top instead of the companies. So again, just allowing you to change this data using the financial report writer and utilizing those dimensions. Other things that you can do here within the financial report writer, certainly you can have computations, you can change the format of the report, you can set permissions on these reports. So dashboards can have permissions, users have permission, and reports have permissions. And then also, how do you want to deploy this report? All of the reports can be printed, they can be viewed, they can be exported to Excel. They also can be set up on the Intacct scheduler to run unattended in the background. So give me a start and end date, a frequency, and a delivery list, and I can set those up once, and then they will be deployed automatically based on that schedule. So a lot of ways for you to utilize the financial report writer. In addition, you'll have about 30 financial reports that are ready to go when you implement. You can use those straight up, or you can use those as templates and copy and create your own version. Now, there's one other type of report that I want to share with you today, and this is something that you may not be able to do today, and that is to utilize operational data in your reporting. So what I've done here, I'm dealing with distribution. So each one of my companies has a warehouse, and they have finite square feet in each one of those warehouses. So what I've done is I've set up a statistical account called square foot. I've entered a statistical journal entry representing the total square feet, and then I've combined financial information with operational data to calculate sales per square foot. Now, I set this up as a monthly bucketed report. It allows me to see how I'm tracking across the month, and I've also included a spark line, so that's another visual indicator that I'm able to use on my report. So any operational data that you want to track and you want to apply the same way as I've done with square feet, you can certainly do that. Now, when you think about what works for your organization, some of you today may be in nonprofit, some of you may be in distribution or manufacturing. The metrics that you want to track, the outcomes that you want to see, and the reporting and the dashboards will be different based on what's important to you. So I wanted to give you a different flavor of some dashboards. So this one here that you're looking at is more a general business or distribution. I would also share with you one from nonprofit. So in the nonprofit world, we are able to provide true fund accounting. And when you look at this dashboard, you see a statement of revenue and expenditures. Same drill down capability. So as I hover over, I can drill into this statement. I can filter it by those dimensions. So I have dashboard dimensions here where I'm filtering across entities or funds. So again, you can use that entity as a fund. You may be an organization that is tracking and recording by program. So having program as one of those dimensions allows you to filter by program. Or you may be a nonprofit that's working with grants and you want to do grant tracking and grant management. So grant becomes a dimension to you as well. And then when you look at some of the different dashboards here, you see that there are role-based dashboards. There are also outcome dashboards. So now you may have metrics that, based on what type of an organization you are, whether you're a foundation, you're faith-based, your school, now you have the ability to set up key performance indicators and bring that information right into an outcome dashboard. So again, understanding that we're not focused on just one vertical. We work across many different verticals. So coming back to our controller dashboard here, one other thing that I want to mention is that these dashboards can be designed by the business user. So they're very easy. You don't need to be a programmer to design them. Very easy for you to put reports. You see that I have some graphs. I can flip between the graphs and the data. And these dashboards are very easy for you to move things around. It's drag and drop. So if I want to change where something is, I could do that, just dragging and dropping something. I can also have these dashboards 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, different colors, and remember that they are permissioned. So I could set up a dashboard that was a view-only dashboard for the auditors. The last thing I want to share with you around visibility today is Intacct Collaborate. And this is the social media layer. This allows you as an Intacct user to communicate with other Intacct users about specific transactions. So here in my Collaborate view, you see that there is a conversation between Joanna, who is the controller, and Drew Jackson, who is an employee. And it's all around a particular invoice. And as I look down here, I can see that there's been some back and forth on this particular invoice. So when these messages get sent, there's a hyperlink to the source transaction. So now when I click on that, it takes me right to that AP bill. So I can see the bill, I can look at it, and then I can scroll down and see all of the conversations that have been noted about this transaction. It's a way for you to self-document at the transaction level. Old school, if I had a question about this invoice, I would either call Drew or I would email him, or perhaps I would walk over to his cubicle. This is a way for you to record those transactions, not needing to go through and dig in emails to find out what happened. This is going to follow the transaction forever. So historically, you'll always have this information. You also have a collaboration feed over here, and this works across all of our applications. It's not just an accounts payable. So this might be a sales invoice. It could be a journal entry. And with these conversations, you can also have attachments. So attaching a file, a picture, a document is certainly applicable to these conversations. So Intacct Collaborate is a way for you to have the social media layer right there attached to a specific transaction. So that gives you a little bit of a brush of what dashboards and visibility looks like in Sage Intacct. This is a way for you to have a full-featured solution around your financial accounting, your financial management system. As you look down into some of the applications, as we refer back to that solution landscape slide, you can see that we certainly have applications that address order to cash, procure to pay. So if you're in distribution and you're buying finished goods and selling them, certainly have those standard business process flows along with workflow approvals. We also have full project accounting. So if you're interested in looking at billing and costing projects, whether they're time and material or they're a fixed fee, we have that capability, including entering time and expense, entering purchasing transactions, and tagging all of that to a specific project so that you can then bill out of one project area. Other additional things that you may see on this list around, collection notes. If you have a need for utilizing collections, that's another application that's available. And certainly being able to have that modern chart of accounts that we talked about, having a general ledger that allows you to have a table-driven chart of accounts as opposed to linear, being able to do that basic budgeting, and then if you need to do advanced budgeting. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to return back to our slide presentation and just kind of open up and see if there are any questions that we might answer around things that have come through the chat, anything that has come to mind that maybe you have some specific questions about today. Any questions from the chat box today?
Yeah, this is Sean. So we have a couple questions, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. The first question we have is, how long is a typical implementation of Sage Intacct?
Great question. Everyone always wants to know what's the ramp time look like and how do we get there and how are we going to be successful in moving from whatever you're using today to Sage Intacct. I would tell you that most of our implementations are 8 to 12 weeks, and they're all driven by a proven method. So we have a proven methodology that we use around implementing. Many of our implementations are done via the web. You'll have a project manager assigned. You'll have your IWI team that will be close at hand, walking you through those normal steps of defining and designing how you want to use Sage Intacct and talking to you about what data you want to move forward. That's always a question that people have. You know, can I move historical data? Absolutely. How much of that data do you want to move? And most people move at least a year so that they can do those comparatives in the financials. So again, 8 to 12 weeks really depends on, you know, what it is that you are trying to get done, and maybe you have some certain target or deadlines that you're trying to meet. So we want to throw a little bit more weight on it, get it done in less time. Great question. Thank you for asking.
And we have another question. What types of company are using Sage Intacct?
So I would tell you, again, we do have some sweet spots. So about a third of our installed base comes from the nonprofit vertical. We also have a large presence in our software as a service. And that really kind of couples into our project-based customers. And those are customers that typically are like our software companies, where they have consultants that are going out working on projects. And many of those projects are time and material, where you have those downstream transactions. Professional service companies, where they're charging for a consulting fee and then expenses from those consultants that are going on site. Another area that I mentioned is wealth management, financial services. And the reason that this is such a strong vertical for us is because of the multi-entity capability. You know, one of the things that I would mention to you there is, if you are running multiple entities or companies, with that configuration, you have the ability to use what we call some shared objects. One of those shared objects is the chart of accounts. So you create one chart of accounts and you use that across all of your companies. So you eliminate the need of creating a chart for each company. You eliminate the maintenance that goes along with that. And by using the dimensions and moving to a table-driven chart, we've seen that companies and specifically nonprofits can move from over 3,000 accounts in their chart to less than 300. The other two objects that you share in the entity environment are customers and vendors. So now that means that you only need to create one customer master, one vendor master, and again, you can share that across all of your entities. That makes it very easy, makes it very consistent, so you're not, maintaining all these different master files. So I would tell you those verticals are very strong for us. Distribution, we have people using distribution at different levels. So we have the ability to track your inventory perpetually. We have the ability to, of course, use those items on sales orders all the way through project accounting. We also have the ability to have non-inventory. So if you're just using inventory to buy non-inventory type items like paper towels and kitchen supplies and things that you don't care about perpetually, you can certainly do that as well. And we do roll that all the way out to light manufacturing, if you will, in that we do kitting. So we have that single level kitting application. You can kit items together, stock those on the shelf, and then pull those out through sales order entry. So distribution is a big play for us as well. We're not a full-blown manufacturing solution. We partner for that. So that's something that we would use another best-in-class application. We have several to choose from. We partner up with them, and we have those integration points already defined.
Hey, Linda, looks like one more question just came in. What would be the number one reason for moving to a Sage Intacct?
I would say the number one reason would be modern cloud-based technology. From a technology perspective, you're going to be on the latest and greatest version of software that's being updated 4 times a year, software that's being maintained by the publisher. So it's going to take that load off of you as the user. From a functionality standpoint, if you look at it from that perspective as opposed to technology, I would say the number one reason is to be able to have dimensionalized accounting. And that means using those dimensions to get to the data. I call it access to information. That's probably the key takeaway today, access to your information. There's a couple of studies out there that I've read that say, companies have more data today than they've ever had. It's not a matter of do they have the data. The struggle is how do they get to the data. So it's access to that information that's so critical. And having a dimensionalized accounting format allows you to get to that data. So just to close up, I know there's some next steps and some resources. How do you contact and get more information? So Sean, I would ask you just to cover that for us.
Yeah, so thank you, Linda. So everybody can reach us through your account rep if you know their extension. And if you're not sure, you can reach us through sales@iwigroup.ca or at 416-499-4821, extension 101. And we also have a toll-free number as well, because I know there's at least one person from outside the GTA. It's 866-916-3851, extension 101. And please feel free to follow us on our social media links. They're actually at the bottom of all our signatures in our emails. Just to report on a lot of related Sage news and webinars. We do webinars on a regular basis. So at this point in time, we're going to thank everybody. We will get in touch with everybody in the next few days. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, more questions that you're going to have after you've had time to soak all this in. So we'll let everybody get back to the day. And thanks once again, and thank you, Linda.
Oh, you're sure welcome. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon. Bye now.